Midwest Paratalk Radio. Midwest Paratalk Radio is brought to you by WMPP Digital Broadcasting. You can catch Midwest Paratalk Radio on all podcast platforms as well as on YouTube at Midwest Paratalk Radio. And here are your hosts, Deb and Gregg. Hey, everybody. Welcome to Midwest Paratalk Radio here on the WMPP Radios Network. We want to thank everybody for tuning in and watching the show. You'll have to excuse my technical ignorance at the beginning of the show here. We've got to clear out some of these videos. I'm scrolling all the way from the top to the bottom trying to click on stuff.
I'm sorry.
Oh, shit. Deb got all upload happy.
Well, we had a lot of stuff to show.
We did have a lot of stuff to show. We have a lot of stuff not tonight.
No, we not tonight, but we have a lot of stuff to show.
Oh,
in the future.
Yeah.
Excuse me.
So tonight we kind of have a part 2. Nat is with us again after 11 years. Was it 11 years?
Yep.
And
how old were you then?
In 2012, I was 15.
Yeah.
Oh, 15. God, we're old.
You couldn't pay me to redo those years, though. I'll be honest. I'm glad it's one and done.
Yeah,
totally. And we'll get into that here in just a second. For you, those of you who don't know, when I said part 2, her mom was on last week, and we talked a little bit about the investigation and got some insight. And one of the cool things that came up is when Deb and I were talking about the investigation and we were talking about you, we were kind of feeling like there's possible like some sort of like PK going on, that the energy surrounding you was kind of causing some of the issues. Now, to start off, why don't you tell, give everybody a rundown on your story and kind of what was going on with you in 2012.
Yeah, I mean, to start at the very beginning, we moved into that house when I was 4 years old, and in 2001. And I think my first interaction, we'll say, with the spirit was around 4 or 5 years old. So it's something that's been a constant for me that I genuinely not necessarily thought was normal, but that a lot more people had those experiences than I once thought. And in terms of 2012, during your guys' investigation, which was around June, 2 months prior than that, I had lost my grandmother pretty suddenly. So I wanted to close that loop, and the grandmother had recently passed, and the video last week, it was mine. And then 2 months after that, it was either a couple days beforehand or after you guys investigated, I had lost my cousin at the same time. So that was pretty surreal for me, having those first family experiences. I actually was at my cousin's funeral, and the dirt on my grandmother's grave was still fresh. I could kick it around, and that was insane for me. But in terms of the investigation, hearing back, I couldn't help but be a little proud of myself, because here I was at 15 years old, ghost busting. I was talking to them and asking questions, because I said, finally, some adults are here and they believe me, and I need answers. Dang it,
Uh-huh.
Right. Yeah. And it was an interesting investigation. I mean, we got, the entity wisp coming around the corner there, out of the bathroom. It was the attic where the Marine was talking to the entity as a Marine, and it was answering as a Marine. The EVPs. I mean, it was a crazy evening.
Yeah, I watched the video last night for the first time, and I had to stop it four or five times because I was having like a visceral experience where just seeing those things again. I was so young, and seeing it again. I don't know. It was like it had happened yesterday. But in terms of the transparent entity that would peek over, that was surreal for me seeing it again because I, no joke, had encountered it hundreds of times as a kid. And I thought I was losing my mind because it was so transparent and so quick that you would think it. And my mom had so many knickknacks and antiques. I'm like, that's just a shadow at that point. But, her house was super open concept.
Mm-hmm.
A super open concept, and it would be to the point that when I was in the living room watching TV, I would face to a point to where I couldn't see behind me to see my mom's bedroom and to see where whatever appeared because I just didn't want my peripherals to allow myself to kind of go back there and even have the potential of seeing it again. And I mean, I did that for years. There'd be times that when the activity was peaking that I would just sit in the middle and just be frozen because I didn't even know what to do with all that stimulation.
After we left, did it seem like it settled down a little bit after we came and did what we did, or did it seem to stir it up more for you?
I would say it stirred it up. It was around 16 when I had some interactions to where I was like, this is too much. This is it. Like I have to block it out. But I want to go back to the soldier too. That was one of my, in terms of not reality TV, but the following up with everything with the soldier. Nobody knew this. So, we had the EVPs and we had the Marine interaction, and that was clear. And he said that he was there to protect me. And it just shook me to my core because 3 or 4 years prior, not even at that house, it was at my father's house. So I was in between maybe 10 or 12. I had woken up in the middle of the night with this like gray entity at the top right corner of my bed, and it paced to the top left corner of my bed, and it flipped like similar to somebody in the military doing formation. And then it walked to my left side alongside my side of the bed, and it leaned over me, and it was just a dense figure. So I couldn't see, what branch or anything of that nature, but it leaned over me, and then it just disappeared. And then I never had that interaction again. And it wasn't until those following years that when we were in the attic and I heard that communication, it's like, there's just no way that you guys didn't know that I had experienced that.
Right. Yeah, that was intense. That was intense. Now, like you said, there were a lot of antiques and whatnot in the house. But you said you were having experiences prior to being in that house with the antiques, right?
Well, in terms of my memory, that's my first house. I don't remember the house we lived at prior, but there's specific pieces that I like. My mom has a mirror in her dining room, for example, that I refuse to look at. Like I cannot look into it. I don't know what it is, but I've been trying to get her to get rid of it. And what's odd, she said that she was drawn to people. So she's right. A lot of the photos of the people on her walls are not our family. But there's one that looks almost exactly like me, but it's a baby in the like 1900s, whatever era. And she loves it. And it freaks me out.
Wow. Yeah, were you having just visual encounters? I know you had audible, visual. Were there any pushes, scratches, tugging of your hair?
No, I mean I've had my hair like played with, like moved, but nothing violent or I felt like I was gonna have any bodily harm. The story where I had told my mom that I had felt pushed, it was actually one of my first memories that I ever had with the spirit. Is I had this giant squishy teddy bear, and I'm going down the hallway, and it starts tugging at me like with the teddy bear, like something's pulling the other side, and I'm 4 or 5, and I'm like, what the heck? I haven't even processed it. All I know is like that's my bear. And so, were going at it. And I had called for my mom. And by the time that she got there, I had just felt myself kind of drop a little bit. Like it was pulling to where I was kind of in the air. I mean, I'm small, and I can only imagine how much I weighed back then, but I don't know. I didn't think much of it. It's odd when I tell my experiences, people look at me like they've seen a ghost, no pun intended. But for me, um, I don't know. I just have always not necessarily been okay with it. I've been scared. I was scared a lot as a kid because of all of those interactions, but I just kind of accepted that's a reality that I may not fully understand.
Mm-hmm. Have you done any research or any kind of digging into, I guess that's the same as research. If you had some sort of, psychic abilities, mediumships, anything like that?
Yeah. So, one of my favorite stories is after I had blocked everything out, and I still had it. My main sense is clairaudience, and I think at the last video, I remember with the EVP when you asked how many spirits there were, and it said 8. I was impressed how quickly I caught on. I go to Debbie. I'm like, "Did you hear 8?" And it was like my brain had already been accustomed to transmitting the different voices and sounds even through the static. So I even had that gift then. But I moved out at 17, and I think I moved back home once or twice, and every single time I moved back home, my mental health took a hit. Like I felt it to the point where I was like, okay, I can't keep coming back here anymore. And then I moved to Indianapolis, and it was 2020, and it sounds so crazy, but I was watching a Ghost Hunters like parody on YouTube. And the television had said the word dead, and the entire house went black. Like the power went off. And then, it turned back on, and the smoke detector was going off after we had just changed the batteries. Like that's not something that's connected to the power.
Mm-hmm.
And it had gone off, and, my boyfriend at the time is wigged out. And for me, I've had electronics, especially if I'm emotional, malfunction all the time. Like I walk into rooms, lights flash. Just last week, I was in the bathroom and the lights was like pulsing some sort of code. And I'm like, are you done? Like, I don't understand this. I'm never going to understand this.
Right.
But I'm just laying in bed and I'm like, shit, here we go. Like it's here. It's at my new house. And my partner, is the first time he ever looked at me like scared. Like he instinctively knew that I was somehow causing it, or that it was trying to communicate with me. And I'm at that point where I try to debunk. I mean, I think we naturally do. And so I'm like, okay, cool. That was nice and showy, but I need you to do it again, since you like messing with electronics. And this is me trying to like outwardly communicate to whatever caused it. And within a week, I had a PC with all the bells and whistles, RGB, things plugged in the USB, and it was flashing. Like everything on it was just flashing, and I hadn't touched it. And I'm like, cool, thank you. That's what I needed.
Right.
And that's what we do. I mean, and that's what you learn to do. In my case, I'm not unlike you. I've had experiences my entire life at your age and even younger. And so I think, what you're doing is a healthy and natural, normal thing to do, because you want to try to figure it all out. But then eventually you get left with this little bit that's just gonna be there, and that, and you learn how to live with it and accept it and everything. Sounds to me like you're doing a pretty good job. I know when Greg and I first met you and you were young, pretty much after we got into the house and we started working, we both were kind of thinking that there was a lot of energy around you or focused on you. So, and that's, that happens sometimes, especially with girls, young girls, we have a lot of energy, but, excuse me. I don't know what the heck's wrong with me. I got a frog in my throat all of a sudden.
Get you another Marlboro.
I don't smoke. Shut up. Anyway, no, I'm really tickled that you're here and you're talking about this. This is
Agreed.
have you now you live in another state now. Do you have things happen there at the new place now? Is it following you like it always followed me? Is it following you wherever you go?
Yes. And I was
Yeah.
going to say, well, two things. You start to learn that it has to have an energy source. So whether it be, me being emotional, or in that case, the technology. And so sometimes I'll be like, here's a candle, do something, like make the flames. So I've been working with different like mediumship or divination and in that aspect. But also what's crazy is I'm starting to understand like the imprint, like when you're near your partner or your mom or somebody that you're familiar with. I don't know if people are conscious about it, but they all have their own like energetic footprint. Like I
See?
can identify them.
Exactly. I just said that today to somebody else that I was on an interview with. Everyone has an energy about them and it's unique to each person, and I have the ability to feel it and you do too. So that's interesting that you would say that. It just came up today.
Yeah. And in 2020, it was the same energy. And I have my points of where I wanted to clarify. So I know everybody was wondering if
Yeah.
I opened the Bibles in the stairway to a specific
Yeah,
verse.
your mom said that.
I did not, like I said, every time I go back to my mom's house, I do a little bit of like sprinkle, like spirituality, whether I put the Bibles in the hallway or my new favorite thing is I like to take salt and sprinkle it in front of the basement door. And I'm just like, y'all, all that energy just stays there. You're not going to cross because I'm here.
Yeah.
Right.
And I don't want to have to deal with it.
That's cool.
So,
I do have a question about the Hat Man. Do you remember saying that?
That was my first ghost.
Look, the reason we asked that is because we just did an investigation last week and it was it was like 1 block away from your mom's place. And at this house, these people talk about a Hat Man that comes. And as soon as they said that, I'm like, hold on.
Yep.
We are like a stone's throw.
right.
So that's why I had to ask. I don't mean to trigger you or
Oh,
upset
no,
you or
no, no.
anything.
He's just, I'll get into that. But in terms of the Bible verses, I didn't have one set. My logic was that hallway was the darkest room. There's no windows. And so with my spirituality, I'm like, okay, God's word is the light. And so me putting those Bibles is putting light in what would be an energetically dense area. And that's where the most ominous, heavy, like I have something on my shoulder following me up each step. I'm hearing footsteps up and down my stairwell. And now, for the viewers, my room was the only room upstairs. So it's me and then the downstairs and then the attic that doesn't actually have a floor. There's just boards. And then there's the butler's room that has carpet and nothing there. So I kind of wanted it to be to where whatever was there couldn't hide. It made me mad, honestly. It was like my way to kind of stir the pot. I'm like, well, I'm back and you're gonna have to find someplace else to lurk because that's my stairwell.
Right.
But in terms of the hat, it almost correlates. It's the weirdest thing because I did some major research on the Hat Man, and it's a phenomenon that thousands of people have reported seeing, and there's actually a correlation of people that are going through like dark times, whether it be like abuse, divorce, death, alcoholism. There's this correlation of when they're in dark periods of their life that they see this Hat Man. So the consensus is they don't understand if he's there to kind of guide you through those times and be there as support, or if he's watching and that's his energy source. So I'm not sure. In the beginning, that's what I believed was in the stairwell, and I'm terrified. And he's large. He's very large, and just like people say, some people say he doesn't have a face. Some people say he has red eyes. Some people have, they say that he tries to attack them. Some people say it just stands in the doorwell. I had the kind of the doorwell experience where he would just watch. But I believe that was who was pacing up and down the stairs and rattling the doorknob. And I say that because the house where, that situation happened, I had already felt the energy on the stairwell, but I'm like, this is nothing. Like that, fine, cool. That's where you guys like to hang out. That's whatever. But when it had occurred and I felt his same energy, I didn't sleep that night. I'll be honest. I just sat there and I'm like, what do I do with this information?
Right.
And the last house I moved at or lived at before I moved out here, it didn't have stairs. And he like just wasn't a fan of it. Like he likes pacing. I don't know what it is. And so my house now has stairs and it's the same instance. It's like right at the top. I can just feel that presence. And I guess before I was scared, and now I just see it as a constant. And I feel like he is kind of protecting, and I've interacted with him, and I've allowed that open space, and he's never crossed boundaries, and I've never seen anything increase or bad things happen to me with my interactions with him.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
but it's and we all call him Hat Man. Like he identifies himself as that. We don't. I don't know. It's a large mystery,
It's just so bizarre that, like Deb said, I mean, this house is a stone's throw away from your mom's house. And one of the claims of activity in the attic area, the attic rooms, is of the Hat Man. And
the doorknob jiggling.
Their description, yeah. Their description of the Hat Man is it is a massive, for lack of better term, shadow within the house upstairs, and it rushes anyone coming up and walking into the room up the stairs. But yeah, there's like two parts to this house in the attic, and there's a door that closes, and the door would literally shake back and forth at the handle like somebody was trying to get in. Claims of activity were that some of the individuals couldn't get out when that was happening out of that. Yeah. So interesting.
Sorry, go ahead, finish.
No, I was just going to say that it seems pretty interesting that you have that claim and have had that claim, and then like a block away, it's the same instance in the attic. That's bizarre to me.
Well, and I don't. There's so many just like question marks. Mine, and I'll get into like past lives, and that's kind of how it's connected to that relationship. But and you get possessive, like my Hat Man. Like, where is that even coming from? But like his name's Arthur, and I refer to him as Arthur. So when people have these experiences, I'm like, oh, that's not how mine interacts. But I started to think, we all have different jobs. You think of USPS, how many people work for the post office, how many people are doctors, how many people are nurses. I genuinely believe in the spirit realm. It's not one, it's multiple that have that same job or density and so I really feel like there could be, multiple shadow people, multiple Hat Men that they have the same antics, and energy about it, but they ultimately are assigned like to the individual, or maybe they have multiple. But I guess, we go back to 2020. I'm sitting there like, what do I do? And a couple months go by and I am talking to one of my girlfriends, and, we're drinking wine. So all the conspiracy theories and stories start flowing out. And I'm like, how do you feel about ghosts? And she's like, oh, like I'm kind of a medium. And I'm like, really? Okay. And I'm like, and we take our wine glasses. And I'm like, go upstairs right here. And I say nothing. Nothing. I'm like, what do you feel? And she starts to describe it. And I guess he actually in the beginning was saying, like, what are you doing here? Like he was kind of upset that she could sense him.
Right.
And she said the same description of like the Hat Man and the trench coat. And he's an old man with gray hair, and his name's Arthur. But what wigged me out is she said that he was a plague doctor during the bubonic plague.
Wow.
And that he would take bodies and, they put them in the wheelbarrows and they would pace the streets and they would find it. And that's why he liked to pace the stairs.
Oh, wow.
Because that's what he did. And that back in my past life, I was this like 2 or 3 year old girl. I guess I had curly blonde hair and blue eyes, and that I had died, and he picked me up and just saw this small person that, and I guess nobody like wept. Like I didn't have a mom or a father like asking where I was at. And you think of the emotional turmoil of the bubonic plague, that when he saw that, he was like, oh wow, I feel connected. And that like he died shortly after, and we all know what occurred in 2020 was the plague. And so I don't know if he was like awakened and was like, this can't happen to her again. And what's even weirder is I never got COVID.
Yeah.
Ever. I've been tested 5 or 6 times and I never got it. And I bartended, I worked in a warehouse. It didn't impact me. So I don't know. And the way that he stands in the doorwell is similar to what a father would, when they're telling their kids goodnight. That's the energy that I get.
Yeah.
And so I don't know if it's like a soul contract or what, but I mean, having so many different people say the same thing without me giving them any bias to work around, that kind of sealed it for me. And that's how I perceive him.
Wow. That is that's mind blowing actually. And you've never gotten COVID off of that.
Well, maybe you're right that he's protecting you.
Very well. Yeah. So along with that, so you left your mom's house, what, 17, you said, and you were back a couple times. But other than the Hat Man, what other experiences kind of followed you?
Oh, followed? I'd say just him, but I mean, I had a lot of experiences at the house. I had no idea my mom knew about the woman that screamed in the basement.
Oh yeah.
I was we had a snow day, one of those random ones that just kind of like accumulates. And so, me and my friend were watching Dr. Phil, as most people did back then. And we heard it. It's this, you never forget the pitch, you don't forget the length. And the same thing, it seemed like it was coming externally from outside, thinking that somebody got hit by a car because we lived on a busy street. But you also kind of knew that it was coming from inside. Like it had so many, the range was so large that I don't know. It just, you never forget it. And then I didn't know that my mom had experienced it later as well. And the bathroom with the flashing lights.
Yeah.
I was like, is this some kind of sick joke? Because I used to, like, within like milliseconds, turn on the bathroom light when I was a kid. That specific one. Did
you see the video clip we had of the light flashing?
Yes, that's what I was like. Are they mocking me? I'm sure not. But I would flick the light off so fast because I couldn't even like take the chance to see what was happening. And this is kind of an early spiritual experience. I don't, maybe I was 8. All I know is I had a dream and I walk into the bathroom like one does, and I turn on the light, and there is my great grandmother standing there, but she has no color. She's just gray. She was in like assisted living at the time. And from what I understand, she was kind of a mean woman. My mama, so her daughter, her brothers had both passed, one in a car accident, and I forget the other one, but she would like often say, I wish it was you and not the brothers, things of that nature. And I remember like she'd shoot snuff and she didn't talk much. Like I just happened to just be the granddaughter visiting. But I mean, I was around her quite often, at the end days, because I had spent a lot of time with my mama. But what's crazy, so, she's gray, but she makes eye contact with me. And when she did that, to this day, I've never felt more dark and angry and any negative emotion that you could think of, just honestly, like pure evil, jealousy, anything you could think of. It just surged through my body the second she made eye contact with me. And through that, I just woke up in tears. And then I found out that the next day she died.
Oh, wow.
And my dad's side Southern Baptist, so it was, I didn't say that.
Yeah.
Right.
I have a question. Your mom is, not only does your mom have paranormal experiences and things, but she's also seen she's had some experience with the UFO side of paranormal. And I was just curious if you yourself had any, if you'd seen anything UFO wise or anything like that. Were you live here during the Kokomo boom, didn't you? Did you hear the boom too?
Yep. I remember, so I heard it, and I think my mom told me to stay there because I don't remember the second row of lights. So I'm in the backyard, and then I finally run out, and my neighbors were outside too, Gary and Mary, and I see the fire amber red, from one light, and then it turns into 5, but you could tell that it's in a straight line, but you could tell that there's a little bit of curvature to it. And then it disappears. And me and my infinite knowledge at 11 years old, I'm running in the backyard. I'm like, where'd it go? I'm like, this is crazy. And I will never forget. I look up at the sky, and again, I'm 11. I like trying to describe what I saw was difficult in that instance, aside from the color, the fact that it was in a straight line, there was a little bit of curve, then it's gone. But when I went in the backyard, there was this trail, and it wasn't like an airplane trail. It was dense. I still don't know what would create that denseness. And I shit you not, it looked like a snail had just went across the sky. Like you think of that slime, that like dense slug. That's what I saw. And I've been able to find online videos that mimic the Kokomo boom and what we saw after. I have not been able to find anything that mimics that trail. And that's the mystery that I haven't been able to piece together. But in terms of any other UFO activity besides that, again, like I said, who knows if it's sleep paralysis, if it's, you're actually kind of in between dimensions, or maybe whatever is going on, you just happen to wake up out of, the spiritual anesthesia. But because I was abused as a kid and all the ghosties, honestly, I was scared. So when I had bad nights, I would sleep next to my mom, like up until I was about 14 years old, because I just was that petrified. And so I had to have been 9 or 10. Like I remember I had like just started like having my consciousness, you're like, oh shit, other people think too and have opinions. That's crazy. And so now we're just all interacting with each other. But I had woken up in the middle of the night, and my mom was laying right next to me. And in the dining room, there were 2 like small grays, like just no shit aliens. And they didn't flinch. They didn't act like they were like, human, this little girl's awake. What the fuck? They just kept doing what they were doing. And I could just like instinctively know that they were wrapping up whatever. And the second I woke up, again, they're just chilling there. There's like 1 on each side. And they had told me, like, you don't have to be scared. We're just here to check on your mom, and that you're safe and there's nothing to be afraid of. And, me with my clairaudience, I was like, okay, these guys speak telepathically, like too. That must be, sorry if you hear my dog bark, she's kind of needy. But, I'm like, these things speak telepathically too. It must just be something that we haven't tuned into yet. But I just didn't feel fear, and that was it. But what's really weird is, and I feel like, Debbie, you would adhere to this, is once you have the first interaction, you kind of know that they'll be back. You just don't know when. And that's what I can't describe.
And was that the last time though? So you're kind of wondering when? Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm noticing that your light, do you have a ring light or something, or is that your computer? Because I'm seeing it flare up bright. Greg, you seeing that? When she talks, it gets really super bright and then it dims down. Do you see it on your side there, Nat?
It wouldn't be surprising.
I just wondered. I'm noticing that, and it's reminding me of something that happened to me. And I'm like, I wonder if she sees that also, because I'm definitely seeing changes in your light. So just curious.
I'm seeing it dim, and then it's getting brighter when I'm speaking. But yeah, it's not like sound activated at all, and it doesn't have the technology to adjust, based off my movement. It's not like it's a camera where it can focus in. It should just be emitting the same watts to the same direction.
Right.
Yeah, that's why mine was like $10 from Wish or something. It made one color, which was not dark. So, but yeah, I just was curious if you noticed that, because I'm definitely noticing it. And again, my mind goes back to your energy. your energy, yourself. So I think we got a little of witnessing of it in real time here.
No, you think of the the superhero movies, the person gets super emotional. What is that show? I'm gonna remember it the second we get off, but it's this family and it's this guy and he has these orphan children and he trains them. It was on Netflix. There's a couple series, but there's different ones, and there's one that has electricity, and I think his name's like no. So Klaus is one of the names, and he can kind of speak to the dead. But there's one that is kind of her abilities don't get activated, but she's the one that might cause the end of the world because she just gets so mad that it just poof. And sometimes I feel like that, like when I get really emotional, things just kind of go haywire. My phone dies quicker and things of that nature, and I've just kind of accepted it.
Yeah, I've been noticing the lights in and out as well.
Yeah.
There's a couple times where I think I'm gonna have to go back through the video because I think I've seen something else.
Do you can I don't, are you going to continue, trying to grow your abilities
practice?
and practice
Absolutely.
and stuff? That's cool. Yeah, I think you should. That's my opinion, but
And I think that's what kind of made me stop being afraid, because once I realized that it's like if I'm the source, then that means that I also kind of have control and I can filter what I allow and what I don't. And then I have a scale, believe it or not, to where if a spirit's super transparent, I'm like, oh, they're new, they're light, they're not very dense. And then the darker they are, if they're darker than dark, and I'm like, absolutely not. Like, get out. Like, I don't. And oh, I've had so many instances like packing to move, and I can sense something behind me, and I look, and I can see it, and I've had experiences with like shadow figures aside from the Hat Man, and they're fast and they're chaotic. And I'm trying to meditate, or I'm trying to just like get into my Zen. And it's like they're just putting this like interference to where I can't connect. And I'm like, that's just not okay. Like, you're going to have to do that elsewhere.
I was going to ask you if you meditated and if you found that useful or helpful.
I just started getting into guided meditations, and I listen to like solfeggio frequencies. I have a sound bowl, so I am tuned to like the different hertz and chakras. Sorry.
No, you're fine.
No, we love dogs here. We all have dogs running out the wazoo. So
I might just hold her. It might be easier.
Geez, she looks like my little Lulu.
But I started doing guided meditations, and they're like, zoom into your breath or channel in, like feel your energy center, feel the space in between your throat and here, your head and here, and it'll be like 6, and it'll say something else, 5, something else, 4. So my last conscious memory is when it'll be like 4, 3, it's doing the countdown, and then I go into this state of just like nothingness, but I'm still conscious. I'm not asleep, but it's like that in between. And the next thing I know, that when I am conscious, I can hear them say, okay, take your last breaths, like come to wiggle your toes. And I'm like, what the heck happened in between those 40 minutes? And, I'm really big on like having white light over you or Archangel Michael. And so I will see that energy around me kind of like in a dome. And then sometimes it'll turn into, like the vibrant rainbow, all of the energy. And then that's it. It's like I'm in this weird bubble.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how else to describe it.
Right. More. Yeah. I understand that completely. One of the questions I wanted to ask you too is, after we came in and investigated and things kind of progressed on and whatnot, did you ever start your own investigative team? Did you do your own investigations?
Just me. But I guess we can get into like, did the activity increase? Yes. But I think also me too. I did. I think I finally just like hit that angsty peak.
Mm-hmm.
I've had some. So it used to be where I didn't remember my dreams, but then I started doing like dream work, and I'd have certain crystals under my pillow, and I would like speak to my subconscious before sleep, like you will remember your dreams, you will, and then I started to. So that's gotten a lot better.
Mhm.
But after the investigation and just in general, I would only remember my nightmares. And one of the really profound ones that I had, I was around 14, and I'm in this in between state, and there's just a bunch of smoke, and it's like the movie Insidious. If you remember, where they're in that whatever, it was exactly like that. Like you can't see anything but the smoke. And next thing I know, there's this creepy woman, and she just comes in my face, and she looks at me, and she goes, "The devil gave you depression." And then I wake up, and I'm like, "That's great. I cannot wait to go to school and just that's fine." But I never looked at mental health the same. And it was when that I was like, oh, really? So I'm going to combat that. And then I started looking into, and around that age, it's like 8th grade, you learn about world religion. And I was so drawn to like Hinduism and Taoism and Buddhism. And I just started like looking into the Eastern practice. I honestly obsessed with their love for nature and how they respected the new beginnings and destruction and things of that nature, like the yin yang. I think Alan Watts ends up saying that, it's the same fish and the duality. And so it took me about 15 years, but that's all my spiritual practice has been, is understanding my own subconscious, my own trauma. How can I, like, the alchemy of it? How can I transmute it? I never wanted to be a dark, malicious person. I never want to take, I don't ever want to use whatever gift or abilities that I have to continue that narrative. I want to be on the opposite side. And at this point in age, I feel like I chose that path. I think they were tests. And I think I needed to see the kind of darker aspect of things. And another dream that I had after my mama had passed, and she was a very religious woman. And honestly, after she passed, I was so excited to talk to her. I was like, cool, like let's interact. And it really wouldn't happen. I'm like, okay, maybe she's in this like in between state, where she's not there yet to be able to communicate. And I had a dream, and it was kind of similar. It's this dark space. I don't know how to describe it. It's like, it's almost like it's propped. Like you would think like a TV set. So there's like a table and 2 chairs. Like I'm on some weird spiritual Jimmy Fallon show. It was really weird. And again, there's this woman. It's not the same woman, but she's kind of creepy. And then there's my mama right next to me. And so, we start talking and asking questions. But the more that, my mama spoke, I realized that there was something wrong with her. It wasn't actually her. There was just like some little things off. And then she ended up attacking me. And then I woke up. I don't know. And so that was around like 14-ish. And then right when I was about 16, and this is what I said, okay, I'm done. I have to block it out. This is too much. We'll start with the day before these dreams occurred. I was upstairs, and I had woken up in the middle of the night feeling like something was cuddling me. I'm like, okay, this is new. This is a new one. And I ended up just being able to fall asleep because I was so tired. I had felt it. We had cats. I had a bunch of blankets. I was just trying to convince myself anything but that. And then the next night I slept on the couch because I was like, I don't want that happening again. And I had a dream where I was in my dad's van, and he was driving, and we had gone back from a movie. Like I knew the context of the dream, and I'm in the backseat of his Town and Country, and he's driving. And it's like somebody had put like a dryer sheet in front of my eyes. Like everything was blurry. And I just knew that I had been drugged. Yeah. And like my dad, I could tell that like it's not him. He had no idea, but I'm in this weird state. Like I said, it's like somebody just like, I couldn't really see. I couldn't connect into myself. I didn't have as much control as you do in dreams where, you're just kind of like a character and you're watching that happen. I mean, I felt powerless, and all I could do was just look out the minivan window at the trees going by as my father was driving. And then immediately the next dream, I had a super close friend who was also like very open-minded. So I would talk to him about these things. And in the dream, I had heard his voice. And so I reached my hand out, and what's really weird and what I'm learning is if you ever dream exactly where you're at, some weird shit's about to happen. You should probably try to wake yourself up. Like, that's not normal. And so I did. I dreamt that I was exactly where I was at on the couch, all of the situation. And so I hear my friend's voice and I reach my hand out, and what grabbed my hand was not human. It was dense. It was slimy. Like, it's the skin didn't like squeeze like human skin. I know that sounds weird, but we have the tissue and the blood flow, but it was just dense and slimy and just gross. And it laid next to me. It cuddled me. And what was wild is its neck was broken, and this thing was tall. So I'm laying next to it and its neck's broken. So all I could see is like the side of its cheek. And I said, "Let me see your face." He said, "No." So let me see your face. And I start to wiggle up to like try to see it, because I'm like, if you're going to be weird like this, at least look me in the eye or whatever. And before I can get the words, "What are you?" out. So I said, "What?" And it just immediately takes me by my ankles and starts slamming me into the ground. And
Gads, what a nightmare.
It literally, yeah. And I could feel, like, I woke up feeling my vocal cords strained. And in the dream, I could feel myself scream. And I'm screaming multiple times for my mom. And she finally, comes and gets me. And I had asked her, I said, "How many times did I scream?" And she says something like 3. And I'm like, okay, so that was real. And I'm like, but I screamed five times. So it's like, I really might've been in that in between. And I feel like in that dream that I was drugged. It's because I was trying to be like, it was trying to put me at a weaker state so that it could manifest and like do that. And my friend was a CNA at the time. So she got off work at 7 a.m. and I call her frantic. And I'm like, "You got to get me like out this bitch." Lickety split. And I didn't go to school the next day. And so, yeah, no, I took notes over kind of what I wanted to say. And I said, "Man, it's really weird that I just wrote the word succubus on a notepad." But that's what I think it was.
Well, that's what it sounds like. That's what it sounded like for sure.
Yeah. And I told my mom about it, and she was like, "Oh yeah." She's like, "A year ago, I woke up in the middle of the night thinking that something was cuddling me." And I'm like, "Mom, why don't you tell it?"
You think maybe I ought to know that? I don't know. I'm just saying.
Yeah. But that's when I just started blocking everything out. And like I said, I love all religion. I love the idea of questioning, what's out there, just the pursuit, the path. I think that's really the meaning, is just to be able to do that, to grow, to fail, all of the in between. And so after my mamaw died, like I said, I wanted to talk to her, and I'm like, well, what would mamaw do? She would tell me to be close to God, because she was Southern Baptist. And I said, cool, I'm going to do that. And so I would pray, and I was reading my Bible, and at my mom's house, whenever I would pray, I'd hear the word "no" afterwards, like just no. I'm like, oh, again, why we had to do this?
Right.
But I've never had that since. And now, like, I have my full practice. I cleanse myself about once a month. I cleanse the house. I put protective sigils over my mirrors. I lock all my mirrors with Palo Santo. I just, and it helps whatever I need to do.
Right. Yeah, 100%. Yeah,
I'm full. What is that? What you just said about your mirrors?
Locking mirrors.
Yeah, so, I don't know. Educate me out here.
a lot of people, with mirrors being the reflection, it's like a lot of people think that they have like the ability to be like portals, and people can be trapped in, or when you're looking, they're looking back at you. So locking the mirror basically means they can't go nowhere. They're just stuck. Like Maleficent, I guess. I didn't really see the movie, but there's mirrors, so I assume she's stuck there. I don't know.
How do you do that?
So I take the Palo Santo, and it has the ashes, and it will leave a mark. I will draw it on the mirror.
I'm just curious, because I'm learning. I'm on the UFO side. I've got 40 years of UFO stuff, and I'm newer in the paranormal and in the spiritual and stuff. So I'm learning, I learned things from our show. So I appreciate you explaining that to me. I'm gonna Google that up. I might
Right.
need to
Yeah,
do
I
that
mean,
around here. I
a,
might
a
need to
lot
do
of
that.
a lot of people refuse to have mirrors in their bedroom at all.
Yeah, and that reminds me
Or
of the
facing a
story of the mirror.
TV.
Right.
If you have a mirror
Definitely.
facing another mirror or a mirror facing a TV, it creates this like energetic like loop.
Yeah. Yeah.
And they at the house we investigated last weekend, they had some issue with the mirror. So, and I videotaped into this old mirror, and I caught something. I don't know whether it was coming out of the mirror or what it was doing. Do
Nice.
you remember that little thing, that white thing that
Yeah.
come up
Yeah.
and then shot out? I'm like, what is
Came
this?
up came up from the floor and did a 90. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you know, when you have a spiritual interaction and they draw your energy, like they force you to look at it, they're just so so abrasive that way. But and TVs, I get that a lot. Like I'll look into the TV and I'll see something like standing behind the couch or yeah. But I mean, other spiritual stuff that I do, I have 2 pieces of iron that I have underneath where my partner and I sleep. So iron is supposed to prevent nightmares,
Mhm.
and so that helps. But
Yeah.
I I've enjoyed it. Like honestly, like my spiritual practice just makes me feel so understood. I was in therapy since I was 8 for about 10 years. And you know, no knock to Western practices, like they have their purpose, but I just wish that I would have been able to have access to holistic. Um,
Right.
I could have spoken about my gifts and that correlation, and I could have been taught the things that I know now because I'm not on any mental health like medication at all, and I take vitamins and I have my practice and I have my faith and I've understood the balance of it, and you know, just because I have these interactions doesn't mean that it's all doom and gloom. I just happen to be able to be tuned in.
Right.
You know, that's great. I mean, I think that's great. I keep hearing in my head, I keep thinking I need to ask you, or to tell you, you should document your journey. You know, you should write about this. You know what I'm saying?
100%. Yeah, for sure. 100%.
It's like
No,
I'm being prodded
I
to
get that
put that.
nudge often. Yeah, and honestly, me being on here and putting it on my social media, I was very hesitant because, you know, the usual, what are people going to think? But I was like, you know what, these are my friends and I want them to have whatever audience that would come with me as well. And, you know, these are my truths. And I'm at that point. I was joking with one of my coworkers today. I'm like, yeah, people are at that point where it's like ghosts, aliens, like that checks. That makes sense now.
I know. I saw a meme one time not too long ago that said something about, oh yeah, and the government tells us aliens are real and no one cares. You know, it's like, oh, okay. And then they just go on with their life. You know, things are opening up, people are opening up, times are changing, you know, and I'm glad to see some of the things that I'm seeing. And it does my heart good to talk to you after, you know, how many years and see how far you've come and how wise you are for such a young person. And I see big things in your future for you.
Thank you. Yeah, and I do kind of give like spiritual guidance to people. I'm really big on natural laws to where I would never like put my beliefs or anybody. Like I do kind of test the relationships and the interactions in my life, and or if I, you know, I see them down, like the first thing I want to do is like, how's your relationship with yourself and, you know, the outside world. And I've noticed that when I do have the spiritual conversation with people, it's almost like this hive mentality. This like, you know, you talk about universal consciousness, and I've noticed that when people and I get on that conversation, then they start to have secret synchronicities. They start to have repeating numbers, or there's instances like between their timeline and my timeline that are like all too similar. It's almost like these timelines just consistently bleed into each other. I don't know how else to describe it.
Nope, I know exactly what you're talking about. And I think a lot of the people who watch our shows probably do too. I mean, you're amongst friends here, that's for sure.
Yeah, there's no difference here. I've seen a whole lot of stuff that there's no explaining. There's no, and one of the things I think that you kind of hit on, when you're talking about telling your coworkers and your friends about it and putting it out there, a long time ago, I mean, even back as far as the investigation at your house is, my job is not to make you believe. My job is to prevent or present the evidence as it is. You make up your own mind. I know what I know. If what I show you, if what you hear, what you see kind of opens you up a little bit and directs you into seeing the bigger picture, then that's, my job is done. I just want to teach people, and I think that's a healthy view to take on, especially with on your part, is that, this is how it is. This is how I am. And I think that's cool that you did that.
Yeah, I came out publicly about my UFO encounter, of course, 40 years ago, thanks to
Good God.
in part, shut up, fool. But with the book that Bud wrote about me and my family and all that, and it was a different time, a different era, and it wasn't accepted to, at all to talk about it. Now, it's people people have really been conditioned, I guess, in a sense. They're the younger generation especially is a lot more open to it, and I love it. I mean, I came when I first started talking about my experiences publicly due to the book. Basically, I used a pseudonym to protect myself, to protect my kids. My kids were little, and I didn't want them to have to pay for my experiences negatively, But once I wrote my own book, I used my real name, and I've been using my real name ever since. And my attitude is, I'm just going to tell you what I know, what I remember, and I'm going to be me. I'm doing me. I'm just do me. And if you don't believe me, that's fine, because I don't expect you to. I mean, I've learned that you've got to come upon your own, you've got to come upon your own growth, your own journey on your own. I can only plant seeds, but you got to figure it out for yourself, or it don't mean anything, And so I feel like I'm Johnny Appleseed of this phenomenon. Like I'm around here, just sprinkling a seed here and there, maybe a word or a phrase that triggers somebody to go on their journey and stuff, And I feel like you would be great at that job. You should, like I keep saying, you should write a book. You should have your own podcast. You should do some stuff on our radio station with us.
I mean, I'd be down to collab, but I guess in that light, there's been instances like, what was even crazier, like especially, I bartended for 4 years, so obviously I was around the industry and I would drink, but even before that, I would have conversations with friends, and I would just know innate details that they had never told anybody in before. And I was a cocktail waitress at this 80s bar, Ike and Jonesy's. I don't know if you guys are aware of it. It was so a lot of things happened at Ike and Jonesy's.
Yes, ma'am. I'm from Indianapolis.
When I interviewed, they had told me, how comfortable are you with hazing? And I said, excuse me, what? And it's like 2019. I'm like, hazing. And they said, the girls are a little mean here. I'm like, throw me in. I'm like, I heard the money's good here. So it's just, you gotta earn your time. But I was so nervous, and I'll respect her name, but basically there was a Latino woman from the Bronx, and she, was in her 30s. I'm like this teeny bopper, I'm 21. I just moved to Indy. I'm so excited, but I got nervous, and they had these Kool-Aid shots, or, and I ended up having like 10.
Oh my God.
I nervous drank, and I ended up asking her if she had been abused. And, the next day I go to work, and I'm like, oh shit, what happened? And immediately she's like, come here. And she like pulls me aside, and she's like, who told you XYZ? And she's like, don't go running your mouth about, that. And she's like chewing me out. And I'm in shock. I had no idea he even said it, but I like knew that I had done that. Come here, Maya. And that stuff happens all the time. Specifically, if I were to be like, honestly, not remember it, I just go into this trance where I just start doing exactly what you're saying, just putting seeds into people and giving this like universal truth.
Don't worry about that dog. He's fine.
We love dogs.
We love dogs.
You can see I'm trying to like lasso her. My hands, I'm like, just get in my
Hi,
hands.
baby girl. Hi.
She's like, I see things too. She's like, I have things
to
say.
She's like, oh yeah.
She goes, who's talking?
She's like, I'm just happy to be here. That's it.
Adorable.
She's adorable.
Right. But yeah, I mean, I'm kind of with Deb on this one. I think you should do a book and put more stuff out. Do a show on the network, do a podcast and simulcast on the network. Can always come to the network.
I say, is that you guys?
Come, yeah. We're the network.
Well, I'm sorry. I guess I'm not good.
Yeah,
okay, that's one thing. And Debbie will find I have the Astra genes where I'm smart as shit and common sense. I didn't say anything, but
I love your mom. I love your mom. She's adorable. She's like this tall.
Yeah.
Yeah, we it was a long time ago. We had a real good investigation at your house back in the day.
We got to do it again. I'll be back in Indiana around Christmas.
Nice.
I've got some things to say too. I think I want to go in there and I'll be like, all right.
Well,
I'll have every crystal imaginable in my pocket.
Well, when you get back to your mom's, give me a call and I'll come over with my stuff. And I'll try to do some recording and stuff. Maybe if the weather's not crappy, Greg can come up with and hang out.
I'm about 3.5 hours south of you now. So.
Yeah, and I'm like 10 minutes from your mom. So, but that
I'm
would
just
be
curious
cool.
if the same things would happen. Are they still there?
Yeah,
That's where I'm confused at.
I asked your mom, and she said that it was my understanding, if I recall correctly, she said that it wasn't as active as it was when you were there, but she still felt like there was something there, but didn't really seem to bother her much.
With all those antiques in there, she's going to have.
I'm like, girl, you need to get some new
That's
stuff.
Just bottom line. That's just how it is. But I think with your, and for lack of a better word, enlightenment now, I don't think that we would have the same evidence in the house as we did in 2012. I think things would be a little bit different.
And it might be better,
right?
If it's more, I don't know. Focused is not the focused is the word I want, but not focused. More, you're more aware and you're more in control and.
Whereas everything else was like super reactionary. When
you were a kid, you were a little kid. Well,
when I heard the EVP where it said, what's up, Deb? I'm like, there was one that would just be mocking like that all the time, and it was just annoying.
Right.
Like, who knows where she went, but. I was kind of commanding where the woman in the dress was in the stairwell because, the hat man, whatever the most powerful or ominous spirit, whenever I would feel its presence, everything else would be quiet. And I was like, I don't like that. Like, it was like a narcissistic ghost. I'm like, I know the DMV and where you lie in it, or the DSV, the psychological... Like, you're not on the good side.
Excuse me. Bubbly. I'm a gurgling again. I got the gurgles.
Jesus. Mary and Joseph.
Hey, you know what?
No, is your friend of yours?
Like it.
Yeah. So check it out. We are just past the top of the hour. Super want to thank you for coming on and talking to us. It's been an awesome hour talking to you.
Thank you.
We need to do it again whenever you want.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, let Debbie know, and we'll do whatever. I'll move stuff around, and we'll get you back on.
Okay.
So,
Yeah, and no, I'd like, to partner and have fun. I have all the equipment. I used to stream, so I'm not too shy in front of the camera. Like during my job, I probably spend upwards of 20 hours a week talking to different people in
nice.
different scopes of life. So I'm not too shy anymore, as we can see.
You weren't very shy back then, I didn't think. I thought you were ready.
Yeah, and you were brave too for a kid of your age at that time, I thought.
Yeah, she's pretty gung-ho. Let's go investigate.
Yeah, she wasn't scared. I mean, she's running up the stairs with the rest of us. I seen grown men turn the opposite directions and run off. So no, she did good.
Right. Well, because now, as a kid, I'm like, now we got the doohickeys to track your guys' ass. I'm like, can't hide,
Yep, that's right.
We got the doohickeys.
We got the doohickeys. Yeah.
So tell everyone, do you have any I don't know, streams or anything still going live? Do you have any socials that you want to tell people about? Give them a little rundown on this.
I'm not on social media too much anymore. I mean, I'm always down if somebody wants to message me and share their stories. Like I said, I have a lot of background and I've endured a lot, whether it comes to abuse, mental health, substance abuse, persevere, like anything. I feel like I've already lived 2 lives. So I'm definitely down for advice in that sense. But yeah.
Totally. All right. Well, I think we're going to start wrapping it up this evening. Check it out on YouTube, Midwest. I'm got to figure out what the hell I'm going to say. Jesus Christ.
At least
I'm trying to scroll through all these fucking EVPs and shit in my.
At least you called me Deb instead of Greg this time. Jesus.
Hey, I was on. Yeah, I have my shit together this time.
Just say the Greb Show. Just like merge it together. Don't even fight it.
Right.
Greb.
Now, for some reason, I don't know why, but the last 3 weeks I've been calling myself Deb and her Greg. I don't know.
I don't know. I don't get it either.
I don't know because
whatever.
It is what it is. So, okay, you guys, check us out on YouTube, MidwestParatalkRadio.com. We are on all podcast platforms, iHeartRadio, Apple, Spotify, and all handful
Deezer, blah, blah, blah.
Right, a whole bunch of shit. So
all that stuff.
Yep, and it's definitely a show for your kids, so don't expect to come in here and to be clean because Deb likes to cuss.
And Deb did not cuss. Greg did.
No. That's not fair. So anyway,
keep me updated on the house though that you guys are investigating.
Definitely,
definitely.
Deb, you should send her over some EVPs that we got.
I will. I'll do that.
It's pretty spectacular. My favorite one is labeled Gurgles. That's all you need to know. You'll figure you'll 100% know what that means once you open up that audio.
Yep.
But thank you guys for hanging out with us. Nat, thank you for coming on. Whenever you want to come back on, let Debbie know. We'll get it done.
Yep.
Just you say a date and it's a done deal. So for you guys out in the chat room listening to us now, like I said, go to YouTube, MidwestParatalkRadio.com. Son of a bitch. I don't know what it is, man. I'm tired. Shut up. Midwest Paratalk Radio on YouTube. Right. I need credits. Subscribe, hit the notification button. Listen to us on Podomatic and all of those good things. So we want to thank you, everybody. And we'll see you next Thursday night, 9 Eastern, 8 Central, here on Midwest Paratalk Radio.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you for hanging out with Midwest Paratalk Radio here on the WMPP Radio Network. You can catch Deb and Gregg on YouTube at Midwest Paratalk Radio. You can also catch us on all podcast platforms. Just search Midwest Paratalk Radio. We will see you next week.